Yep. We're rolling.
All right, great. So we did have a little work session with David Ponder since the last meeting, and with some of his input and the continuing understanding from last meetings about some of Portland's processes, Mike has made some alterations to our generic model. So we are working towards our subgroup was thinking having a generic model of energy management within the water utilities would be helpful, across the industry. So just to have something like, here's a baseline of how you can perform energy management, but that's just one step. We long term do want to have case studies and documentation of different utilities, individual business process models. So that's not our ultimate goal, but it's kind of a stepping stone to be able to establish this generalized business process model. So we've been incorporating things that I'm doing on the analysis and reporting side. But Brittany and Josh gave a lot of input on their process of identifying potential projects, the treasure hunt concept, and then evaluating those opportunities for their viability. So, Mike, I guess you can share your screen and show some of the updates you have thus far.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm finish up an email that I have to send.
Okay.
Yeah, just carry on the conversation. I'll be right there. I already have everything up.
Okay.
In fact, let me share it first, and then you can. And here, did you send this out, Eric, or?
No, I can do that. I can do that right.
Might be useful.
Yep. So, we're kind of.
Okay, I'm back, Eric. Sorry, I apologize for that.
Oh, that's okay.
So, just as a recap, recall that we had Brittany put together a very nice model in Visio, looked like this. And we did a conversion. Has Brittany joined us yet?
No.
So I'm going to come back to this just so that she's up to speed. And we consolidated that this decision logic, which is everything in tan here, into a somewhat smaller model. And then the discussion last week with David Ponder and the project management team, we realized that some consolidations needed to be done. First of all, Brittany's process is really one of taking ideas and addressing how these treasure hunts, so-called treasure hunts, occur, development of new ideas and how that gets converted into a project, and the decisions that are required. Turns out there's quite an elaborate, set of decisions, and as you would expect, that need to be done. And what had been developed in our previous, and remember, this is the high-level model. This is the high-level energy management model, developed with David and Eric primarily, but also others. What this addressed was a leadership commitment was the top part, but the real focus was on, once you've got these projects, how do you, on a regular basis, happens to be monthly, assess what's going on, do the necessary adjustments by collecting energy data and doing, identifying improvements, and then updating or setting targets, and then implementing those if needed. So this process had to do with the ongoing management of energy projects. So we got two parts here. We have a kind of an idea generation part and a new project part. That's the part that Brittany addressed. And we've got a part that has to do with an ongoing monthly review of these projects. So we wanted to lay this all out in BPMN. And what we've come up as a initial proposed model is what you will see in what Eric is distributing, but it is this model that you have on the screen. And before I move over to the modeling tool, let me just review what's going on here.
Mike?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Joe.
Just want to let you know, I put the link to this file into the chat line. So if you'd like to access it now, you can through the chat line.
Okay, thanks.
Just the link in the chat line, that's all.
So again, you'll notice the right-hand side looks a lot like what we just showed. That's from the previous ongoing projects review. And it's a process where we're holding project review meetings and reviewing KPIs, looking at any OR is this opportunity register, which presumably lists all of the current projects, and checking project status, making any adjustments, tasking people to perform the necessary steps to complete an updated plan or schedule or any other tasks that need to be done. So that meeting, this is the meeting, which again, this swim lane is the energy management team. So that meeting results in a task to go out and measure, analyze, review, assess current performance, and then prioritize those, and then set update targets. And then that either gets implemented if there are some changes, or if there aren't any, they just go back and wait for this monthly meeting. So
Brittany has joined, Mike.
Oh, great. So, welcome, Brittany. So now
sorry I'm late.
Yeah, no problem. And what Brittany did was very nice in the original model. So let's go back to that and review what we had done last week, because it's got the important impact in what the consolidation that we want to do. What was interesting about doing the translation of Brittany's model into BPMN is that there were a lot of decision processes. You see them over here. That are very important for understanding which projects to do and not to do, and what needs to be updated, etc. So translated into BPMN, it looks kind of like this, or it does look like this, not kind of. And let me make it bigger. The same events occur, and then there's an opportunity register, and then a bi-weekly meeting that happens. And then that's followed by what is really interesting, a decision process that results in either, I think, 4 outcomes. One is, discuss some project needs and do it. And the do it part is down here at the bottom, where the field staff, plan, do, and complete the project. And there are other outputs where, well, do it later, or it's not a good project, so just go back here and wait. And then there are some there's a direct implementation somewhere down here. I think it's this path that that says, well, we've got everything we need. It's a go. Just do this. Do the project. But if you technically, if you see all these gateways like this and decisions that occur, that's a decision process. And if you just traverse these paths and look at all the possible ways that you can traverse from what's going into this gateway and those 4 outputs, you come up with 8 different options. So what you do in BPMN is you will typically roll that into a decision process, and you just think of it as, I got a bunch of data from my team meetings and from the opportunity register. I throw that into a black box. Out comes these decisions, and you can represent that very nicely in a decision table. This is called a decision table. And there's our 8 rows. Those are the 8 different ways that we can traverse those paths. So now we got a real compact way to represent those
Mike?
decisions. Yes, go ahead.
Mike, sorry, would you mind maybe for those who haven't seen this, maybe flashing a little bit too quickly, just maybe show a little bit about the table, maybe zoom in a little bit just to kind of explain what it
Yeah,
does.
sure, sure. So let's just look at an in progress path here. That's the simplest one. If the project status is in progress, then it goes to discuss the project development. And when you convert these gateways into a set of business rules, that's what we're doing. What we do is we just lay that out in a table as a single rule. And we say, well, the project status is in progress. That's the decision that gets made. Then the action is to route to the discussed project development and address any issues task. This is just taken directly from Brittany's model and laid out in a table. And then if you, again, you traverse all those other paths, you would find the same sort of, checking against some attribute against its values. And those are the decisions, either yes, a lot of them are yes, no. And then you lay them out in the table this way. So the way you read these tables is, the vertically in columns are and. So this condition and that condition. So in the second rule, we're checking two things, making a couple of decisions. And the third one, we're making three. And then the fourth one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decisions. And then whatever the results are, we get some final decision. And that's how we decide how to route the work. So so the decision table is I think Josh brought this up last time. It's a evolution of this expert system idea where it's a formal way to capture decision rules. So it's a nice way to encapsulate what you know and the decisions that you currently make in a table form so that you can maintain it, change it, adjust it, alter it. And avoid, there's nothing wrong with showing a model as Brittany did with these gateways and task blocks. However, it's a much more, you guys still there?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I just had a glitch in the matrix here.
It said project investigator, yeah.
Yeah, some things moved around, so let me get back to my PDF. Yeah, so I think the point I was making is that it's not a problem to create business process models with these gateways and tasks, but it does, if you use a decision table notion, it's a bit more compact and it allows us to do what you see in this slide, which is to gather all of that TAN stuff, remember the TAN stuff, into a single task, which we indicate is a business rule task. It's got this nice table up here. Actually, in the tool, when you click on the table, you get that decision table. And then we know now that there are 4 outcomes from that task. One is to gather more information, and then we have to loop back around. The other one is these 2 paths are on top of each other, but one is discuss the project. And then it goes into a task to discuss the project development and address any issues. And then goes down into implementation. That's 1, 2. The third path is just go directly to implementation. I assume that the understanding is that the energy team has decided they got everything they need. It's a good project. Go ahead and pass it on to the field staff and implement it. And then the 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth one is, well, this is a no-go. Basically, this is a no. Project's not not ready or not appropriate or whatever. So it goes back to our start and we wait for the next biweekly meeting. So so then. Again, this is a very nice way to wrap up a discussion about the treasure hunt idea and what you do with the ideas that come in from various places in the utility. And then the discussion last week was about, okay, how can we fold this in to our larger energy management model, which at that point last week looked like this. So now I'm going back to the original model. This was the model developed by David and Eric and others to show how they do their regular monthly assessment. And the question that David answered, and David and Eric, was, well, if we want to fold in this treasure hunt, it's really a process that happens before all of this. It's assessing these new projects that come in, and then they're going to be folded into the regular monthly review. So, any questions about that? Does all that make sense? Brittany, did that was that understandable, the way we did the translation and the decisions and all of that stuff?
Yeah, I haven't seen the a decision table like that, but I really like that because, yeah, it really kind of lays it out nicely. And then when you go back to the model, it made it less messy, which I liked. So, yeah, and because that all was kind of like part of its own task to like look at all these things and then, yeah, decide what to do with it. So makes sense. And I like it.
Does that differentiation of the process you worked on has to do with handling the new ideas that come in and deciding on the projects to implement, and versus the ongoing review and management of existing energy projects?
Yeah, that decision tree is definitely kind of more when we're deciding what to do with the project or how we're going to approach it. And then once it's already kind of been decided to like go ahead, then it just kind of we discuss it as it comes, and it's not necessarily part of that like decision table.
Okay.
So on the projects that end up do it later, is that I got to say that when I'm watching this, it's pretty exciting because this is how you all of this institutional knowledge gets captured in a way that when Brittany goes off and starts an IPO and becomes a billionaire and never speaks to us again, her logic is sort of captured for anybody to do. The other thought I had was it makes it possible to turn energy management into a board game. I'm just saying, I'm just throwing that out there. But what happens on when you have a project and it makes it through, but for one reason or another, we can't initiate it immediately? Does it just go back and start the whole process again?
Yes.
I mean, okay.
That's the way it's represented right now.
Yeah, I guess my question is that accurate from the way our energy team works?
I think kind of, because then the way it's represented on the model is it gets looped back to then the like bi-weekly meeting. So then, because in that weekly meeting, we kind of go down line by line. Although I know recently we've just been looking at the in progress ones. But I think that's accurate for it to then kind of loop back around to that bi-weekly meeting. And then usually in that meeting, we'll either just kind of leave it be and keep it sitting on the side burner, or if something changes, then in that meeting, we'll decide whether or not to move forward.
Yeah, that's path right here, David, or Josh.
Is it fair to say that a project that's been delayed on account of one or more criteria that's not met, let's say, it would only get considered again if there were no low-hung fruit or higher scored efforts to focus on? It seems like it's prioritized differently once it's in that. And I don't know, if I'm just going off on a tangent here or not, or if it is actually there's a way to reflect that prioritization scheme in here.
Yeah, I feel like that'd have to be like another kind of, or like similar to that decision table, but something to kind of help you make that decision basically on whether one project is more priority than the other.
I mean, it may be kind of in there, just de facto, but
Mhm.
it's, I think it's, yeah, there's a prioritization part that's kind of built into the biweekly energy meeting. Maybe that's
Yeah,
what it is.
To answer your question directly, no, that it is not. But hold that thought, because that's something that we've been talking about, and you'll see it again in that ongoing energy project management cycle. Because right here, there's a meeting, right? But there isn't right here any sort of prioritization, unless it happens in the meeting. That's a possibility.
Yeah, I think it usually would happen during the meeting.
Yeah. So
That'd be like a sub kind of process as that meeting.
So is it true that when you hold this meeting, sorry, I'm having issues with my screen here today. When you hold that meeting, you have in hand everything you need in order to do that prioritization, excluding the possibility that you might gather more information and come back around.
Typically, we should, have all necessary information. Yeah, assuming, we've already kind of gone through and gathered it all.
Right. And that I think happens here.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, maybe asked differently, it's like what triggers the re-examination of a project that's been do it later.
Yeah, and I know sometimes it could be like maybe we just don't have the resources, or we just don't have like it won't, like sometimes we have to wait for the dry weather season because we wouldn't be able to do it during the wet weather because we have a lot of processes online. So sometimes it's like process or resource related, but when it's like I think like whether it's too difficult or higher cost kind of project as opposed to one like changing the lights. That one I think definitely takes a little bit more thought.
Cello?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention these models are hierarchical. So the idea is that we don't try to capture the details of everything on a single diagram, but that we have a solid, healthy view of the main elements in the work. And then we would drill into more detail and identify the inputs, the outputs, the decisions, the artifacts, then and the data flows, everything on the lower layers. And on WISE, since we have different utility partners could choose to dive into different components and then show they're doing it, and we discuss, bring it all together. So we start developing a solid map of how these things are done. So there's before BPMN there was a like IDEF standard, and they had a limit. Don't have more than 7 boxes on one chart. So we're gonna get, we're putting ourselves in a position to win, in a position to develop more detail, but to find the right balance of how much detail we can include on a single diagram. Just wanted to mention.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the like prioritization and kind of that discussion happens in that biweekly energy team meeting. So like that little box could be expanded into its own process, I think. So I think just kind of having it there, knowing that there's a lot more involved, but yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice. There was a discussion in one of the meetings before about how you do prioritization. That might be interesting to flesh out a bit. I'll bet there's a lot of decision being made in that, and techniques, et cetera. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we got pretty rich set of ideas about how to handle new ideas and what goes on in an existing monthly review or regular review. And that's what led us to this big model, which Cello put a link to this. So you might want to open this up in your on your own machine to review it. But the first thing you'll notice is there. Let's just ignore for the moment the leadership swim lane or role at the top, and focus on this middle energy management team. If we go and roll in Brittany's model with the previous ongoing energy project review process, we get this. And basically we take the information that the process model here and put the relevant components, most of the decision processes, et cetera, over here. So here's our, on the left-hand side, we put a little group element around this and called it the treasure hunts or new energy savings ideas. So the energy savings ideas come in. They also come in from other places, but this is just the process that Brittany outlined. And then they also have, there's our 4 decisions: the no-go, gather more gather more information, discuss the project, and then proceed to implementation, or go directly to implementation. And then they go down to the implement and standardize, which is done by the energy savings ideas. So Brittany, you'll notice that the what was it called? The Energy Trust of Oregon and the energy management team got sort of grouped together in this model. And I guess I should preface all of this. Maybe Eric, you want to address this, but the idea is to have this kind of general model that we can use as a reference point. And then people would, you know, in their specific energy project, improvement projects, they would specialize this. I don't know, Eric, you want to address that, that idea, that strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think my impression is that most utilities don't have well-defined processes in place right now, and I could be off, but I think we're all kind of figuring this out right now, and by having a model that can be more generic, I think it'd be a good starting point for us to start to build out our more specific models that fits our own utilities. So things are going to differ as far as project evaluation, how much you can do in-house, how much budget you have to do different projects. So there's all kinds of parameters that can change the groups you're interacting with. But I think to have a starting point, a reference point, like you said, and from there start to build our own individual models, I think that would be a great approach. But the reference model, I think we can also build some of those sub processes too. So some concepts around reporting. We have the reporting box in there. We have the project prioritization. All these things, I think we could build out some standard sub processes for that, and then start to work within our own utility. So if anybody has any thoughts on that approach, I would welcome it. Anyone? So I think we can go with that. We talked about the monthly and biweekly points being in there, and maybe making those a little more generic, as we can make it periodic. Some small utilities might not have the bandwidth to do bi-weekly reports, and maybe they're doing things monthly or quarterly and things like that. So those were a couple areas where I think we could make it a little broader. But the measure, analyze, review, what data we're looking at, where it comes from, where it potentially can come from. I think those are areas we can evaluate and set up some sub-processes around. And it may not be, I think there's utilities out there that are still trying to determine how to gather that data and evaluate that data. So we may have precursor processes necessary to say, here's how you should approach measuring energy at your utility, because I think that's something that's being done throughout the sector.
Yeah, so just to complete our model here, all of the things that Eric just said are packed into this right-hand side, which we just labeled ongoing energy usage project review and management. And here's where that prioritization notion. So you'll notice the pattern here: hold a meeting and then do stuff. That was not really, if we go back to our original treasure hunt idea, we held a meeting and then, everything happened in that meeting. That's not what this model describes. This model describes a process where you hold a meeting and then task, people to do other things, specifically a lot of data collection, and which relates to overall energy usage. And then not identifying improvements, but prioritizing them. So those, we talked just a second ago, Brittany, about what do you do when you prioritize. It would really be interesting to see what happens in the decisions that eventually rank processes. And Josh asked a bunch of questions about that. In other meetings, people are always talking about how they do it. Would really be kind of nice to see how that's done, if you can, capture it. And then there's an update, a setting or updating of targets on an ongoing basis. So, so I guess, overall, we have we've combined these two things. The other point that was made in the meeting today, this morning, with Eric, Cello, Scott, and I, was, well, is this really one process or is it two? So we have a meeting over here to review performance, and we have a meeting over here to review the opportunity register. And would it be more efficient to combine that into one and have all of these tasks be melded into the group that you see on the right? So we take these important decisions about whether to implement a project, and we fold that in as part of our monthly review, or some regular review. It wouldn't have to be monthly. It could be bi-weekly, or even both. So that's another question to maybe pose to the group. How does that sound, and what makes sense to you?
Yeah, and I'd like to ask Brittany, because she brought in the bi-weekly for them looking at these projects, and I had the monthly, so we're doing a monthly cadence with our plan. So I guess my question is, are these the same things and you're just doing a different cadence? So my monthly meeting, we're doing the data review and talking about the opportunity register and our targets and things like that. Are you doing similar things, and it's just a matter of you're doing it on a bi-weekly basis?
Yeah, so our current meetings, and this is we're still kind of trying to evolve that part of our program to do the measuring and the kind of monthly review of our targets. So we haven't really made it that far yet. So our meetings have mostly been focused on the opportunity register and project status. but I definitely can see those happening together at the same time, because like it's all the same people, I think, that are involved in those efforts. So I can imagine us, like, as we start, because we're looking at our power metering and what do we have and how do we capture that data and what can we do with that data. So once we're like actually starting to use that data a little bit more, I'm sure that'll be part of our bi-weekly energy meeting. But I mean, I could also see us maybe not talking about that every other week and like doing it on a monthly basis. But I also, I'm like saying two things, but I'm like, I see them working together, but like they're kind of two different topics, like the project status and how that's working, and then the, ongoing key performance indicators and how that's, trending up or trending down, or things to that nature. So after saying all of those words,
so do you think
yeah,
that
like
they
I think
would
it would
be,
make sense to have the meeting.
would you see them as separate meetings or separate things in general, long term?
I think they would be separate because you would be
Okay.
talking about different things.
Mhm.
So like I can imagine it would be the same players and the same, stakeholders in each meeting. And maybe that meeting does happen like together. Like maybe the first half we're talking about the opportunity register and project status, and then the second half we're talking about measuring and analyzing and things like that. So I'm sorry that wasn't really a
No,
clear
I
answer.
I can maybe put a little bit more sharp focus on it. It seems like our team is evolving, so we are just organically bringing these new topics, and generally Leo has an agenda that the main thrust of it has historically been the opportunity register. And also I would say that ETO has a big role in the topics. And if there's a lot on the opportunity register, we don't have time for these other discussions. But often there's like a couple of things on the opportunity register, and then that leaves 45 minutes that we can bring in other ideas. So hasn't been formalized, but it is in fact de facto we're doing kind of both. But I do agree with Brittany that I think as we get more intentional about how how we're handling these conversations, I think it does make sense to have two, and perhaps it's a bi-weekly meeting that hops back and forth. I don't know. It's like we could do a monthly cadence, as you put it, on the opportunity register, and then with a 2-week offset, then doing these broader conversations in target setting and sort of more programmatic, higher level discussions.
That's exactly what I was trying to say.
Well, I had a lot of
So
words
this one would
too.
be monthly too, but they'd be lagged.
I'm
Okay.
just throwing that out as an idea. I mean, we haven't done it yet. And then the other question I have is, how much of what we're trying to put down here, because we're genericizing, is aspirational, and how much is like, this is the way we do it? I mean, I don't know that we necessarily want to copy things exactly the way we do it now, because we can probably in this group together think about better ways to do things. But so it's a question more than a comment.
This is Cello. In general, what we've been doing is trying to first document like the quote as is state and get an idea how things are done now, and try to kind of find similar points and ideas, and then look at those as is models and think about the quote to be models. Where would be improvements? And these business process models like we're looking at would create opportunities to discuss
what kind of improvements could be made. So that's sort of been the general idea. And this is the newest initiative, energy management. And with others, we've gone through these kinds of steps, you know, to kind of figure out document what's as is, and then have discussions and ideas of how to map out an improved process. Brittany, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, and I think because where we're at, like, because we do the treasure hunts as is, and then kind of Eric's portion, we're not quite there yet. So yeah, trying to like put those together for us right now is we're just not there yet. But yeah, I definitely can see like where we're trying to get to.
Yeah, so for the as is, we're really just in that first box.
Right.
And you know, we're exploring the rest of it, but the framework isn't there yet. I mean, we don't have a framework yet for that part.
Okay, so you know, this is the model. We've got a couple of things we're adding that David had suggested for accommodating some of the detail that's underneath this measure, analyze. It should be a sub-process as well. So we're going to flesh that out some more. But it sounds like we should leave this, you know, in terms, if it's a reference model, we sort of leave it as is, and you know, allow people to mix and match parts as they require. But I don't know. I would strongly recommend that if you have the bandwidth, again, these prioritization discussions seem to be common. It happens over here and over here. How does that occur? What happens in these steps? I think, Eric, you've shown an interest in that. And so has David. Other than that, is there anything does anyone see in the overall model that is a gap or is missing? Or, you know, even in terms of to be wishes, is there something that should be here that you think is not yet included?
Nothing comes to my mind that's a gap right now.
Josh, does that make sense?
Yeah, I can't think of anything that's a gap. Of course, that'll happen at 2 a.m.
Yeah. We'll jot it down. We can capture it.
Yeah, I like to see these things coming together though, because it's nice to kind of have a bigger view of what we're trying to do with all of the little pieces.
Yeah. So maybe, Eric, next meeting, there's a bit of cleanup to do. We got to fold in the rest of David's ideas, but I think a task for the next session would be to make all these changes, have one model. They'll call it the reference model, and it'll accommodate all of these notions together, and then have a discussion about what to do next with the models and the specific improvement projects.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'm still, maybe I'm just hung up because and I'm not understanding something, but if we're talking about whether it's monthly, if we call it periodic for now, if we're saying that maybe that periodic meeting can toggle between focus of opportunity register and analytics or whatever, can the left hand side process be moved into the right hand side loop, and some of that be a sub process, and really just have one loop? That's kind of what I'm I'm caught up on is would it be cleaner if we had, one loop and have the ideas go into that loop, but that be in the same cadence, because we kind of have that disconnect between that process and
it is a good point. It's the cadence that's the only difference. That presumably, I think Brittany, you said the same people are involved, or Josh, you said so. It's still in the same swim lane, or maybe it's a subgroup of that, group. I don't know, but that does start to make more sense to me, at least process-wise, because it is. It's not really. It is happening this way, but I guess the issue that we would have to struggle with is if I put a block here called hold project status and performance review meeting. Forget for the moment what triggers it. As a sub-process, I have to indicate, that's okay. There'd be some decision, some routing there. This is a ongoing meeting, ongoing projects review meeting, or this is a treasure hunt meeting. That's the only decision. And then you could roll it all in together and it'd still be the same, just at different levels.
Yeah, I tend to agree that the distinction based on, I think that it's almost like it's such a minor distinction that's, we have this whole other loop showing that is based on the distinction between, it's kind of the cadence distinction. And that's not really that's not the important focus here. So, and it is a little bit unruly to look at. So I do agree that anything you can do to simplify that, unless there's a wholly different, set of considerations and people being that are involved here, and that but I don't think that's the case. I think it's similar enough to where it's really the same meeting. It's just there's a whole variety of things we can do in that meeting.
Okay, so as part of this consolidation, I think what I'll do, if you guys agree, is I'll try to do what we just described, and I'm going to fold this left-hand side and this right-hand side together. Different triggers, perhaps, but consolidated, so it's not so messy, but still captures the same ideas, same tasks, same.
And actions. I think in the high level consolidated process, we could have something in there. I think it'd be good to capture the treasure hunt concept. I think that is essential to the energy management and the energy savings. So I think it should be on the high level. That's something that we would encourage everybody to be doing. And we also, that's kind of, a vague thing too, that maybe down the road we can give some high level guidance on what to do on a treasure hunt. What does that really mean?
Yeah, and I was just gonna suggest, because those treasure hunts, we typically try to do them like every 12 weeks or something. So we could represent that here in the model. Like we have our meeting, and then like off of that, we could have like a 12-week clock that says like perform the treasure hunt, and then that'll kind of loop back around to the opportunity register, which is basically what generates those ideas.
I see. So really, the treasure hunt notion is some people or groups of people go around and query for ideas, or?
Yeah, we typically, now the way we approach it, there's a couple ways, because we've been doing it a couple years now, but typically we'll follow the process. So we'll like one day we'll start at the front of the plant, like at our headworks, and we'll just take a day and walk around, the area, and we'll go with some operators. And we're trying to get more people involved, like from engineering and facilities, but typically it's just the energy team and operations. And we just
Okay.
kind of look and see what we can find.
Yeah, so really what's happening is this energy, say this trigger right here, doesn't really, it doesn't exist. What happens is that the energy management team or some subset goes out and does these tours, hunts for things, and that's where the ideas come from.
Yeah. And
Okay.
very rarely, like we sometimes will get ideas, I think, which is kind of represented down below.
Yeah, this.
But
that
if there's
is
staff
represented.
who are like, yeah, if they're not part of the treasure hunt, but they think of an idea, and then they'll bring it to the team. But typically they're mostly generated from that treasure hunt.
Okay, all right, that's another
And-
good detail.
And the treasure hunts are not like, we don't use energy team meeting time to do that, right? I mean, they're separately scheduled, like quarterly events.
Yeah.
They have a different cadence. They have a different, it's a whole
You-
different deal.
Did you say once every, what did you say, Brittany? Once every 12?
12 weeks, so once a quarter usually. Every 3 months. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. And that,
Question, sorry, there's a question from Keith Dyson. Is the Signavio model stored? He had to run off to another meeting. Is the Signavio model stored somewhere? I tried to access the link, but I don't have access. So maybe you can just, you know.
Keith, I'll send you the model, the PDF, and if you
He
want
left-
the. Oh, okay.
He left, he had to leave, but I thought maybe we can just send him an email later.
Yeah, I'll send him an email.
Okay, folks, we're getting to a couple of minutes before the bell rings. So
Yeah, I think we had some good progress today. I really appreciate Brittany joining. So a lot of
Yeah,
great
sorry again for
input.
being late.
Oh, that's okay. But a lot of great input there, and so we have you have enough work for the next 2 weeks, don't you, Mike, to keep you busy?
Yeah, I think so.
But
You're
I
keeping me
think
off the streets.
but
we need
we'll
to keep him off the streets, trust me.
but we'll I may reach out to you, Brittany, in the next 2 weeks to see where we can fill out some sub processes where we can get some of that work going too.
Okay, sounds great.
All right.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks everybody for your time.
Have a
Bye,
good
Thank
night.
you,
everyone.
everybody.